Okay, guys. Awesome job. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to share about what we just did? Did you have any questions about this content at all so far? Okay, cool. Well, just let me know.
I
So,
actually do have one question.
oh, sure.
Because this was also really challenging. Like I've like led yoga classes with like some Kriya, but never done like just Kriya focused. Um, and I guess I have, and I don't know if we'll get into this more, but like how to know how to structure our Kriyas so that we're really like building the energy or at least like moving it in a way that's not jarring for the body. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
which is
yeah.
really important. So that is in this module right here called teaching methodology.
Okay.
And the teaching methodology, now it's kind of a long, this is really long. So I actually extracted the main point, which is this graphic right here. I don't know how to blow that up. Just zoom in, I guess. I don't really know how to do that. But if you can kind of see it, hang on, let me see if I can. Oh, it looks like I need to finish updating my thing, whatever. So it's this graphic right here, and this will show the opening components. So like what Jen did was basically one piece of well, actually probably three pieces of it. The opening chant tuning in, which you all did, the pranayama, the warm-up exercises, and then you go into this main structure of the kriya, which can include physical postures, the mudras that we did. Like you did a really good job with the intention. The specific, like what makes a kriya a guided action is that it's all based on intention. The specific breathing pattern, which could be any of the brainwave entrainment ones we did. It could be from the traditional books. Like there's like 2,500 of them. I mean, there's a lot. So I only do really five staple ones because those are the ones that are just gonna help anybody at any level, which is breath of fire, the Ujjayi breath, the Bastrika breath, which is a slower breath of fire, and like the cooling breath, and then Nadi Shodhana, which is the alternate nostril breathing. That one's just really good for like, intermediate to advanced. But whatever, you could literally do just deep breathing into the belly. It just has to be for the specific ratios, which are on that other slideshow. But then we always include a mantra, which we have a whole, I'm actually very excited about that, although I feel bad that you guys have to listen to my voice. It's better in person because you can drown it out with like a sound bowl, or a harmonium. And then there's always the eye focus and the body locks, and then it shows the core elements here, which is a systematic progression from the base of the spine to the top, which is what the spinal flexion does. And so in Kundalini, there's like 33 vertebrae because they're counting the sacrum as four. So, because a lot of people ask, like, because there's actually only 26 vertebrae, you know what I mean? So they're counting the sacrum as four, and then they count the bones of the skull. And then you're activating the chakras and you integrate five elements, which is really like basically the cerebral spinal fluid in the hips. So primordial really gets into much more of that because we're moving the hips mainly in that. And then the closing sequence, which is savasana and then a meditation. So this is the general outline. 10 body, like you'll see Yogi Bhajan all over the mat. He doesn't follow this all the time. So the reason why people really loved him was because he had breaks in between each of the very intense Kriya, like Nabi Kriya. We're like doing it for 15 minutes, but then we're actually taking a break. And I think I said this last night, but the reason for that is because you're really it's in the breaks, it's actually in the pauses of the breath, the exhale and the pause of the breath, where you're really allowing the nervous system to expand. Because when we're doing these, we're really placing the demand on the spiritual realm. I don't know how else to say it, but like the subtle realms, instead of focusing on like basically what we can control, which is our body bandhas and the breath. The Kriya allows us to place the demand on our spiritual selves, which is why it helps to heal the unconscious and the subconscious mind. So that's really deep, but basically that's what the structure is. So this is what we follow, and this is what's expected, like in the last one. I mean, that's 6 months from now. So did that answer your question there, Phoenix? Okay. So this is one that I never really actually ever did a video on, which is why I wanted to do it here. I was supposed to do it this morning, but the day got to me. So mainly what we're doing when we're holding the breath and then the bandhas and we're tapping into Hara chakra is this diagram. Hang on, I gotta like zoom in because this diagram is really awesome. But basically, it's going to show the plexuses or the ganglion, or like when we're referring to solar plexus or sacral plexus. Sometimes people talk about the coccygeal plexus or whatever. This is what they're referring to. And it's essentially like the areas where there's major chakra points. But like we know, there's 72,000 marma points and chakra points that it's like, I mean, to memorize all of that is wild. So that's why we focus on specific areas. So they're nouns. The difference between a ganglion and a plexus is that a ganglion is an encapsulated collection of nerve cell bodies located outside the brain and then in the spinal cord, while the plexus is a network and an interwoven mass, specifically of nerves, blood vessels, and lymphatic vessels. So when we tap into the plexuses, like in EFT, there's a neurolymphatic spleen point underneath the rib cage. That really helped me when I had the C word, because I had tumors. It was like really sensitive. And I learned that's what it was. I mean, some people say that they can spontaneously like break up their tumors. Like I know that the like fake influencer on Netflix. I watched that and I was like, oh my God, this girl pretended to have cancer. That was wild. But basically, she was saying that she could break it up. I actually believe that to be true. I really believe you can do this. You can undo it. Obviously, it's through your nutrition, your movement, and also your breath. The breath is very, very powerful, especially when we hold it like how we did last night for a long period of time. Like 8 holds is a long period of time for holding the breath. So hang on, I'm gonna check. I see the chat. I just don't know where the box is. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's about the lady that had cancer. I'm like, what's going on with this lady? So this is from the Nevan Par book, which I really love because, he's pulling out certain things from his genetic code that I might have read the same books as him, but I didn't internalize the kanda to be like this. So when I saw this, I thought this was very interesting. But this is in the Kulnavara Tantra. It's like one of the books that's in your modules. But basically, they're describing the structure of this triangle of the Kamakala, which is the entire creation manifested. So it actually encompasses the root chakra, and it's the source of all of the nadis, the microcosmos, and the triangle directed downwards, which is the symbol of Shakti. So this stuff we're talking about with the feminine arc, being able to take our creative fire and direct it to certain places, it's super important for us to ground. This is what this means, is that, all these words, the lower fiery corner of this, that it's symbolic with the triangle, that it corresponds with the length of the 12 fingers in Hatha Yoga. Basically, it's saying the more that you can ground toward the earth, especially during these times where everything's like accelerated, it seems like time is just like going by so fast. You also equally are focused on that vertical, that connection to source in your sadhana. And that way you can kind of, I don't know how to say this, but like float above some of the other like minutia that's going on. So I work with other people, during the day who are not really in their Kundalini bubble and like practicing this stuff, and they don't really know about this. And they tend to be just super competitive all the time. And it's like, I don't know, I just kind of fly above it. I'm not really in it. And I feel like it's due to just understanding this piece of it. So it's said that Kundalini sleeps in this area. It's folded in three, the coils of the Kundalini and like the triangles, and basically that it is going to also be in our Manipura and our sacral chakra and the Manipura. I wish that was clearer, but essentially our astral body has the same type of nervous system. And so the more you can regulate it, the better it is for lucid dreaming, or if you're very psychic, like I think I talked to you guys about this, like you see alien. I think it was Jen. We talked about seeing aliens before. That stuff is actually very real, like as far as what we're not seeing in our visible spectrum of light. If we were actually able to see these things, we would have to really regulate our nervous system so that we would be able to intake them. But Anita Morjani talks about her near-death experience, and that it's a projection of what's already in our holographic energy body of what we're talking about here, and that people see like in the tunnel, like if they see St. Peter or St. Paul, it's like what they believe. So if you believe Virgin Mary, or if you believe in Allah, or whatever you believe, that's what you're going to be seeing, because it's a holographic projection of what's in your internal body and what you've collected over a period of lifetimes as far as mental impressions. So the yogis have a map for this, the Tibetan Buddhists have a map for this, the Egyptians do. Pretty sure like the Greeks and the Romans did. It's probably just locked in the Vatican. So basically, the Nadis mean the river. And this is what is sort of like unlocking all of this. Like you can actually access this if you're not familiar with some of the things I'm talking about. Later on in the module 3, I'll be talking about plasma, because it's like coming up a lot in all of like my meditations. But basically, plasma is known as like the fourth state of matter from a scientific lens, and then from a spiritual metaphysical lens, it's like the origin of life forms. And so all these like, I don't know if we really want to get into all this, but like all of these things that we're seeing, like the orbs and like the northern lights in Michigan, for example, that's really freaking weird that we even had that. And they came as south as Florida after that hurricane. That was wild. Like it should not go that far south. They're saying that basically, like, because there's plasmic life forms in the firmament or in the atmosphere of the earth, that is why it's like awakening the what appears to be the northern lights. So anyway, our nadis are a part of this. They're sort of like a microcosm. They provide energy to every cell, every organ, the extensive network that's going to transport prana. So that's what we just tapped into in all three of those kriya. So the Shiva Samhita, which I talk about in the initial thing, this is where the derivative of the nadis come from. That's where that picture comes from, is the Shiva Samhita. We talked about the Sri Vidya yogis who worship the mother. They wear the period blood on their head, they worship the mother. And that's still a very active part of India in a specific state of it. Then there's also the worship of Shiva. And so all of their temples fall upon different ley lines, and there's all this shit you can look into with this stuff, and it corresponds with the nadis in our body. It's very fascinating. But essentially there's 14 nadis that are identified as important ones. I really only talk about Trividya in here because the three nadis, which are Pingala, Ida, and Sushumna, because it's really the most relevant, and it's going to be very general for like being able to explain this in a class. So this is very like what we talk about in the 200 hour, but the Ida is going to be on the left side. This is very simple. The right side is going to be more of the masculine energy. And so if you have imbalances in like kind of just pushing too much, or like being burnt out, feeling exhausted all the time, you're essentially going to have Pingala nadi blockages. And so breathing through, actually, that one where we did only the one side is actually super helpful, but they form that DNA spiral, they form the music scale, they form the heart. Like there's a lot of things that you can correlate with this, but essentially these are the two main ones that we study. And then they go up the sushumna. The cerebral spinal fluid that we learn later on basically mimics that on a physical point of view, a physiological point of view, but it's like dormant. It's like not going to be like we are generating that now. Obviously, we activated it through what we just did, but like the people in our household, for example, they didn't do that. So they're just sitting there and they're also still producing the CSF, but it's just dormant. So by understanding some of these concepts, you can awaken it. And so I just talk through each one of these and kind of what people are going to feel. Most of your clients are going to have, like, I would say, you know, it's going to fall into one or the other, or sometimes all of them. But basically, like hypothyroidism, people who are susceptible to diabetes or epilepsy in the feminine chakras, So we unblock it by essentially doing what we just did. And then also you can do hatha yoga. I love hatha yoga, the postures and holding the postures for a long period of time. The Pingala is for the masculine and it's known for the sun. And so these are some of the symptoms of the blockages. So overeating, like I have a lot of masculine energy, I feel like. And so I get dry skin and stuff like that. So basically, doing certain breathing techniques like Nadi Shodhana or like a Chandra Namaskar helps to balance this side. So, and then we talk about the Sushumna Nadi. That's the central channel. That's the most important part. That's how we send the energy up. Fountain of great joy. Each one of those tantras always talks about Sushumna Nadi because that's where we come from. But this is probably maybe the most significant out of this slideshow, which is the 10 main gates. So the gates are basically where the soul or the vital energy are going to leave the physical body when we leave this incarnation and where they come in through. And then some of the texts, now I don't provide these specific texts. The Upanishads are different than the Tantras, but they basically refer to these 10 gates. And this is not really a part of Tantra per se, it's just in the realm of yoga. But I do think it's worth mentioning. So it's very technical, but it's talking through, for example, the first one, Gandhari is responsible for providing energy to the left eye. It starts at the root chakra and then it ends at the Ajna chakra. The Hasti Jiva gives energy to the left limbs. And then this nadi starts at the Muladhara and ends at the Manipura. The Kuhu provides energy to the genitals. So that starts in the root and then it ends at Svadhisthana. And then Saraswati, which is the goddess of all wisdom, she gives energy to the throat, the mouth, and the tongue to be able to teach, to be able to learn. And so that's the root to the fifth. So essentially, like all of your chakras are going to link. The one that we were talking about is the feminine arc, is just the second, the fourth, and the sixth. That's really all I mean, in my opinion, I keep it very simple. But I like to know this stuff because I had that twitch in my right eye. So I know that, like, okay, my root and my sixth are like, I have some suppressed energies that are coming out as this twitch. So this is like before Louise Hay. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Louise Hay, but that's basically what this chart is. So this is her book called Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life. I love Louise Hay. And I feel like, we got to give a shout out to her because she's the one that did 25,000 people and basically tracked what their symptoms were and what they would be metaphysically. So, and it's always just so accurate. So I provide that chart in this one. And basically, I don't know if have you guys had any experience with this at all? The metaphysical root.
Yeah, I have, especially like as I've been learning like traditional Chinese medicine and like plants and how plants are in the body. So a lot of this looks very familiar.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like you were talking to me about that. So yeah, so I like this chart because it has the chakras on the left side and it kind of is really easy to understand. And then it correlates to the chakras. And then Louise Hay gets very like technical with it and everything. So, obviously, I think that this is always a great thing to reference when it comes to understanding the plexus of nerves, because you're always going to have some sort of tapping into that with the Kriya. Like even just doing sat nam, that's like tapping into the sacral plexus, like the whole time. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it for this. So it's really very, very, very simplistic. I think like it just kind of, their work made it very simple for us to understand this. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this? Very straightforward stuff. So next we're going to be doing, so I just wanted to show you the calendar. You guys did I think we'll have Miracle and Cintashe demonstrate in our next one. But I did put because I have an assist, it's like a lot easier to get stuff done. So we have like actual things next to the dates. So I think we're on May 14th. Yeah. So now we're going to do mudras for the next one with intention. So the whole thing, well, I'll probably move through the body. Like I can't just not move, but we'll do mudras, the circuitry with the hands, what it is, and then getting into the different plexuses with the different breathing techniques with the mudras. And then that Wednesday we'll do sound healing. All right, y'all. Well, great session. Did anybody have anything they wanted to share here? Awesome. Well, I hope you guys